This bargain no longer works.
All right, elbows up.
Elbows up.
Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition.
I covered the last campaign, and I think there was an inclination on your part to focus inwardly, to focus on Canada, not to take trips abroad. What does this say about perhaps a shift in focus that you have, or a way that you're rethinking your brand of politics?
Well, I think it's addition, not replacement.
Gang, what's up? Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney. We've got Pierre Poilievre, who is on a crazy tour. He's knocking it out of the park all over the place. He's right now on Bloomberg television. He hammered it, like he crushed it on Joe Rogan. I thought, watch the whole thing. It was excellent. He represents himself and the country so well. Anyhow, let's take a look and a listen. Let's jump right in. Bloomberg television. Check it out. Link in the description down below. Let's get into it.
Canada's broken because we're stupid.
Who's the audience for the speeches that you've been giving on this trip? Is it members of the administration, Americans broadly? Who are you hoping to convey that message to?
The latter. I think first of all, I believe in leverage. We're, as a country, going into renewal of the USMCA, as you call it, CUSMA, as we call it. And one of the greatest leverage points we have as Canadians is the goodwill of Americans. Poll after poll shows Americans like Canadians. They also understand that doing business with us is good for them. So I wanted to accentuate that leverage. I wanted to bring some vivid illustrations of how life could be more affordable for Americans if we had a tariff-free pact between our two countries. And I think when you have Americans on side, the politicians will soon follow.
So your audience is Americans generally, but I imagine you want to convey this to the President of the United States, who's been pushing for tariffs not just with Canada, but countries around the world. Do you think that that message can be resonant with him based on what you know of how he approaches trade?
Yes, because what the President really wants is to repatriate production and jobs to America. And I understand his argument that American jobs have been outsourced to places like China. There are literally cases of American factories closing so that Chinese factories can open. That doesn't happen with Canada. Our role in the American economy is to supply the goods for production. 70% of what we sell you is not for final consumption, but it goes into your production supply chain. So I'll give you an example. We sell about $100 billion of oil at huge price discounts, by the way. $100 billion, which you turn into $350 billion of final sales. So that means that the refinery worker in Baytown, Texas, is taking heavy crude from Canada and converting it into asphalt and jet fuel and other things like that, earning six-figure jobs. These are like the blue-collar, hardworking American people who the President wants to have bigger paychecks. Well, buying more Canadian goods will allow that. Buying more Canadian lumber will allow your youth to afford homes and your carpenters to swing more hammers. Buying more Canadian aluminum will allow your automakers to produce more F-Series Ford pickup trucks at lower prices to your consumers. So if the President's objective is more American-based production, importing the materials for that production from a reliable neighbor at good prices is part of that plan.
Your itinerary hasn't taken you to Washington. What should we read into that, you not going there on this trip?
Well, I'm very open about it. We only have one prime minister at a time. I don't want to interfere in the
I love this part. Pierre Poilievre is a straight shooter.
negotiations. If
It seems to me.
at some point the government in Ottawa asks me to intervene and talk with the members of the administration in Washington, I'd be happy to do it. But I think where I can be most helpful is making the pitch to the American people, American legislators and governors, and collaborating with our government back home on making it a success.
I covered the last campaign, and I think there was an inclination on your part to focus inwardly, to focus on Canada, not to take trips abroad. What does this say about perhaps a shift in focus that you have, or a way that you're rethinking your brand of politics?
Well, I think it's addition, not replacement. My calculation is that my support base was basically aspirational, hardworking people who weren't getting what they deserved. Young people who've been busting their back to try and get a home and still couldn't afford one. Single moms who couldn't afford food. Seniors whose rent had just been jacked up. I wanted to speak to them about the problems we had at home. But I think we can continue to do that while adding to the menu strong leadership on fighting for Canada to get tariff-free access to the biggest and most lucrative market in the world, our neighbor next door. So it's not that I'm going to abandon the fight against inflation, the fight for affordable homes and safe streets. It's that I'm going to add to it.
I saw a Canadian pollster write recently, we're seeing a calmer and more reflective Pierre Poilievre. Is this a concerted reset in any way, or is it not that?
I wouldn't say so. Look, I think I'm showing other parts of my persona that have always been there. I don't believe you can fake it. You just have to be yourself. But I want to show people all of the things that I can bring to the job as Prime Minister. And, sometimes in the job you have to be prosecutorial and aggressive, and other times you have to be reflective and strategic. So it's about more broadening the range rather than changing who I am, which I'll never do.
I want to have you draw a contrast between your view of Canada and the world and the Prime Minister's view of Canada and the world vis-a-vis the United States. So Prime Minister Carney went to Davos, delivered this speech, talked about a rupture, really an irreparable rupture, that Canada needed to move on because things had changed.
This bargain no longer works. Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. We understand that this rupture calls for more than adaptation. It calls for honesty about the world as it is. We are taking the sign out of the window. We know the old order is not coming back.
Your outlook is markedly different from that.
It's a made-up rupture, just like climate change, just like everything that Mark Carney talks about. It's made up.
Just because it's all made up anyway.
Look inside yourself, Rosemary.
Spell that out for me.
So my outlook is that the United States and American capitalism is the greatest economic force the world has ever seen. That's not my opinion. That's not an ideological point of view. That's just a mathematical fact. U.S. GDP far outstrips any other competitor. You have the biggest military the world has ever seen, and you're right next door. We sell twice as much to America as to the rest of the world combined. We sell 20 times more to America than we sell to China. Our interests are intertwined with the United States of America. We have to get this relationship back on track, and I believe that we can, because first and foremost, all of our interests on security, affordability, and economic growth are broadly aligned. Our peoples like each other. Our geography, as Kennedy said, our geography made us neighbors, history made us friends, economics made us partners, necessity made us allies. That those whom nature hath joined together, let no man put asunder. I believe that actually captures it. In simple terms, you can't hire a realtor and move your country away, and nor would we want to. I wouldn't want any other neighbor, and frankly, I don't think the Americans would rather have another neighbor than Canada. So let's get past the politics, fix the relationship, and let our countries go forward successfully.
What do you read into the popular response to the rupture comment in specific? It does seem like that resonated with a lot of Canadians who have been frustrated not just by the rhetoric, but with the economic uncertainty and tumult that we've seen over the last year.
Look, I mean, Canadians are a little bit startled and confused about how somehow we ended up in the crosshairs of tariffs and other comments. And so I understand why people feel the way they do. And what I've told my compatriots is, let's focus on what we can control. We can't control what the president says or does. Only he controls that. So what can we control? And back at home, what we can control is unblocking our resources, reducing our tax burden, opening up free enterprise so that we can become strong, self-reliant. And if we're stronger at home, then we will have the unbreakable leverage abroad that will help us get what we want from our American partners, but other countries as well.
So much of the rhetoric on the campaign trail from the Liberals was Mark Carney can confidently have these negotiations with President Trump. There wasn't a whole lot of that from you. So for those wondering what your tack would be compared to his, how would you approach those trade negotiations differently? What could you tell us just about the way that you would try to broker a deal with the U.S. in this moment?
Leverage. That's the key word. And we have a lot of leverage that we perhaps we don't realize what we have. We're America's second biggest customer. We are the #1 destination for exports from about 30 different states. We have in this, look at what's happening right now. Oil prices are up 60%. Americans are paying $5 a gallon in some parts of the country. We are the single biggest seller of oil to the United States of America. We sell 10 times more oil than your next biggest supplier, Mexico. And we have the ability to produce an extra 2 million barrels, which would be about 10% of your daily consumption, 2 million barrels a day. We can actually supply you with affordable energy. If you're that American guy who's at the pump today and you're overpaying, Canada could be part of the solution to that. And then you've got minerals. We've got 10 of the NATO-defined defense minerals that are necessary for modern.
Just listen, guys. He's being reasonable. I love Pierre Poilievre myself. I don't know why he's not caught on more in Canada.
Warfare, whether it's cobalt for the alloys that go into jet engines, or it's germanium for night vision technology, or we've got aluminum, which you need for armored vehicles and aircraft. The list goes on. We should build up a massive strategic reserve of that and avail it to those allies that sign on to us in free trade agreements. The Americans would obviously be on our side, I would presume, in a future conflict. And in that case, if we have built up a massive reserve of both energy and minerals, and we've signed on to an agreement that allows preferred access to that, then Americans would benefit. Now, to get that, what do we want in return? Tariff-free trade. We want the tariffs gone on our aluminum, steel, autos, lumber. So simply put, build up leverage using our strengths, use that leverage to get tariff-free trade.
We'll wrap it up right there, gang. Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney, thank you for watching this video. Pierre Poilievre does seem to be on fire. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. Did you watch the Joe Rogan Experience where Pierre Poilievre made his appearance? I thought it was solid. Anyhow, check you out in the next video. Thank you for watching this one. Ciao for now. We're out. Me and Sweep here are going to go watch a movie.